the earth reality itself, as you know, it generates a field that is experienced as duality. That's the fundamental principle of your third, fourth density experience, yes? But when you actually ask the question, why duality? What is the function of duality? It's always important to ask the function. Yes, as an engineer, one always asks the function. So if we ask, what is the function of duality? The function of duality is to generate an experience of reunion. And so the earth reality itself is blooming with beings that are arriving in many forms and in many states of awareness to principally discover the experience of reunion, which is not so easy to discover in other dimensional realities where a unified field of awareness is the status quo. So it's that absolute joy of coming back into the oneness that the earth reality is designed for. And so what you discover is that what you see to be a battle between light and dark, or positivity and negativity within this experience, is just a function to bring it back into one.
Welcome to Cosmic Conversations, the podcast where we explore the multidimensional nature of reality and connect with wisdom keepers from across the stars and beyond. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Rebecca Dawson, a renowned channel, speaker and author who has been in direct communication with an enlightened collective known as the Masters for over 25 years. Through her work, Rebecca offers profound transmissions that illuminate Earth's transition, the evolution of human consciousness, and the embodiment of higher dimensional awareness. Her transmissions go beyond information. They are energetic experiences designed to activate remembrance within the listener. Whether you're new to multidimensionality or deep on your own ascension path, this conversation will leave you with a new sense of self, soul, and source. Let's dive in as we explore Rebecca's unique journey from the messages of the Masters and what it means to live in true alignment in these transformational times. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, Hayden. What an introduction.
Well, I'm glad you liked it.
I'm great. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm very happy that you're here as well. So can you share the moment or the process that led you to channeling the Masters, and what did the initial connection feel like?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a process really that led me there, because it was a spontaneous event. So it was kind of unexpected. And it was really the process, I guess we would say, was the unfolding after that, where I had to figure out what that would mean for my life. And it changed the way that my brain worked and how my senses were in the world. So the initial experience was, just a huge energy that came, I would say, through me. And my voice changed, and suddenly my voice changed. And then all of a sudden I was having a conversation, but I was witnessing the conversation that was happening. So that happened, I think I just turned 18. And so it wasn't something that I really prepared for or ever tried to do. I don't think anyone really, or maybe they do these days, but certainly 30 years ago, people really didn't try to be channelers, as far as I was aware, especially not, when you're from Perth in Australia. It's not really on the menu of things to aspire to when you leave school. So it was a little disruptive, I have to say. But the feeling of it was, I'd always been interested in like mystery things. So when I was, in primary school, I used to like go to the library at lunchtime and look at all the, unsolved mystery books, because that was the closest thing I could get to what I knew was more real than what was being presented to me in reality. So for me, when that experience happened, yes, it was disruptive, but of course it ignited, I want to find out more about this. I want to see where this goes, because there was so much mystery around it. because it wasn't really something I planned for or tried to engineer. So, in that sense, the curiosity for me has always been the driver, and it still is today, actually.
Mm. What I find really interesting about what you just said is the fact that your voice changed, during this
Mm.
process. So what did it sound like before and how did it change?
So it was really the first experience that I had of channeling, and I guess for the first maybe 5 years that I was channeling, the experience would be that a huge energy would suddenly start to expand out of my head. So my head would feel like the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. And I knew that when that was happening, whoa, boy, here we go. Because it wasn't something I could turn on or turn off. It would just happen spontaneously, and sometimes at the most inconvenient times. Like I could be, out at the pub having a beer, listening to a band, and all of a sudden it would happen. So it was not the greatest convenience many times. And I didn't really know yet how to, I won't say control it, I didn't know how to smoothly move in and out of it consciously. So when that energy would expand and my head would become so big, I would have my eyes closed. I only started channeling with my eyes open in maybe the last 10 years. And that's just because I didn't know that you could until I saw somebody else do it. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. And I could. So I always did it with my eyes closed. And so I'd close my eyes when I'd feel this energy coming. And then I would literally be moved to one side, and I'd always be moved slightly to the left. And so I would feel like I was sitting here in the room. And then the voice would start to come through, but it was like it was next to me. So I could hear it, but I was no longer exercising that voice.
Mm.
So it would literally like someone pick me up and move me to the side of my body. And of course, I didn't really realize that until I'd open my eyes afterwards. And I thought that I was sitting in a different position in the room. And I'd open my eyes and I was actually to the right of where I was. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I would describe it.
It does, yeah. It makes perfect sense. And for anybody who's watching this, they may have also felt, those similar kind of experiences, those subtle sort of in either shrinking or enlarging of the head. I remember actually as you were talking about that, then it was funny. It triggered a memory for me when I was a kid, and when I used to play in my bedroom. I always used to feel like I'd go the other way. Instead of my head feeling like Mr. Marshmallow Man, I would feel like I was almost being sucked into like a little vortex, and that the world around me seemed so big, and I felt like a little pinprick in amongst it all. So I wonder if that is the same thing, or maybe that's just mental health.
No, I think that's very indicative of that happening because it's basically a change in the way in which we sense scale of the universe. And it's the same thing with vision and view. When I go into a channeling state, suddenly I can see, and I can see multidimensionally, whether or not, I'm looking, say if I'm looking at the screen now, when I go into channel, which we're probably going to do a little bit later, I will have a completely different view. I'll have a multidimensional view of you, and I'll have a multidimensional view of reality and whatever it is that we're speaking about. So it's just a change in scale. So what you're describing makes perfect sense to me.
Oh, that's so interesting to hear you describe it like that, because I've never even sort of joined the dots like that before. So for those people that are unfamiliar with like who the actual masters are, how do they describe themselves and what their mission is for humanity right now?
Well, that's really interesting because they're very hesitant actually to describe themselves. And the reason that they are hesitant to describe themselves is because they're very interested in humanity stepping into their capacity rather than seeing them as an authority. So they always talk about themselves um, as as brothers, or we are with you. They always start with we are with you. And they don't see themselves as elevated in any way. They just see themselves as having the freedom to be able to see things in a way that when you're in a human identity, you can't normally see it. So they have allowed themselves to be identified in the past as Saint Germain, Serapis Bey, and Kuthumi. And there are also other streams of consciousness that come through as well. And sometimes when they come through in particular themes, you can really hear the distinct character and the tone of voice in each of them. More recently, they've been coming through as a collective, as we move into a more expanded consciousness as humanity. And as I move into a more expanded consciousness as a channeler, they're less identified and more of a collective. And actually, that's been very, very interesting, because what I have found is that the depth and the breadth of the wisdom is amplified, because now it's a collective view. There's a richness to it, even more so than when the masters were channeling through particular identities, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. It's so great that they're not sort of putting themselves on a pedestal and, it's like you mere humans down there that don't know what you're doing and we are your guides, because that's almost like indicative of old school religious principles, isn't it? And, it's what we want to get away
Absolutely.
from.
Well, then they've always said right from the start that we are here so that humanity awakens to the mastery within. And they've often said the day of the teacher is over. So they're not so interested in the student-teacher paradigm. They're interested in people claiming their sovereignty to access infinite wisdom within themselves.
I love that. It's so important right now as well for people to claim their sovereignty because it's like I think that's the remembrance aspect of all of this, isn't it? And we were just having a chat off camera, weren't we, before we started the podcast today, that we both have this introduction into color therapy, which triggered our own awakening. And we were talking about the different rays, weren't we? And how the different rays align with certain ascended masters. But we're also aware that, the unified field is like this vibrant sort of like white energy, which is the collective vibration.
Right.
And, I think that so do you find that when the masters come through, are you able to sort of see colors as well, or do you feel into it, or is it just purely through the voice?
You mean if I'm assessing someone or looking at a situation or a person? Is that what you mean?
Well, when you're channeling, do you find that, for example, if Saint Germain, the energy of Saint Germain comes through specifically, that you can feel that violet, sort of ray around you? Can you feel into the color aspect of it as well?
Not really. Like I do experience color in terms of those multidimensional views that I mentioned before. So I'll often see things in a very vivid way. But it's interesting because when you get into multidimensional viewing, there's so much richness of information. I almost have to stop to pay attention to color because it doesn't necessarily present itself in color. It presents itself beyond color, if that makes sense. But as far as I feel that what you're saying is, can I make a distinction between the certain vibrations of each master? And yes, I can.
Okay, so how do you do that?
Yes.
How are you able to do that specifically? So, for example, I mean, I know that it is more of a unified collective right now, but I guess initially when they were presenting themselves as individual,
Right.
sort of essences,
Right.
how would you be able to tell whether it was the voice of Saint Germain versus Kuthumi or Serapis Bey?
That's such a great question. And this is how I would choose to answer it. So, of course, there's a familiarity when you first start channeling. Oh, that's that familiar energy. I know that. And in the beginning, it was like, and the more you get used to it, it becomes familiar. It becomes comfortable. Yeah, I know this. And so when a different master started to come in, it was like, oh, this is different. This is new. Yeah, I'm having to adjust a little bit more to it. But I want to describe it in terms of what we were talking about before we started the call today about how cosmic wisdom and the universe itself is in the shape of a tree. We would say even the universe itself is the shape of a tree with branches and roots, and our nervous system is the same. So each branch of the tree, each major branch of the tree, we could say, as we said before, is like one of the rays or one of the masters. So when someone has a channeling experience and they're likely to go into a sense of guidance in the beginning, it's important, or it has been a very important part of my experience, to realize that it's not something outside of yourself coming in. You're going into yourself and accessing something and bringing it out. And so if you think about that cosmic tree, and we're multidimensional, right? So we're the whole tree. But let's say Hayden in this particular life is one twig or one leaf on this part of the tree. And so you're peering out into life from there. But when you go within yourself and within your own consciousness, you sink deeper into the tree. And the further you go into the tree from your identity, the more of that tree you can access. So if you go down to the next fork, suddenly there's other branches there. And if you go deeper, now you're getting a sense of the greater limb. And so that's how I would describe channeling. So in the beginning, you're going to be bringing through wisdom, maybe from other lives that you've had, right? Other identities, which are very close to you on the branch of the tree, or other beings, or you mentioned earlier, star seeds that are part of the same particular branch off the tree. And that was my experience with Saint Germain coming through. So that was actually the first master that came through was Serapis Bey. So that was very familiar. It was strong, but it was like going from a leaf into like a big branch. And it was like, whoa, this feels weighty. There's weight to this, which is interesting because a lot of people will say, well, it must feel so much lighter. But what it does is it pulls you in more. So for me, the channeling experience was like, it was weighted. It had more gravity to it, if that makes sense. I wasn't just floating around in the breeze. It wasn't fluff. It was like, whoa, now we're in this big limb. And so what I've discovered is that when you start to channel, and through many other people I've assisted with channeling, you're going to start to channel that which is closest to where your identity is currently sitting on the tree. And the deeper you go into the tree, you can get to the place where you're in the trunk. And once you're in the trunk, which is like source consciousness, right? We're all one. You've gone as deep as you can, and you realize we're actually all one. At that point, you can access any branch, any life, any experience, any time, any stream of wisdom. And that's what every human has the capacity for. It's just a question of how deep are you willing to go into yourself? And how willing are you to lean back from your identity into the wealth of what's available within you? So I hope I answered your question.
You did. And that was a brilliant metaphor. It helped me to be able to really understand the construct. It's a very it's a simple illustration, but very effective. And I'm wondering, when you were talking about initially channeling Serapis Bey and that feeling quite heavy and dense, because he's on the white ray of harmony through conflict. So I wonder if it's because of that sort of vibration, if that was sitting quite close to you. Does that mean that did you experience a lot of conflict during that part of your life, or had there been sort of early trauma?
I would say yes, but for me the vibration was more an unapologetic announcement of presence, and very matter of a fact. And there was a sense of fearlessness there. And Serapis was a very wonderful first experience of channeling for me, because it was like a sword coming through. I couldn't argue with it. I couldn't bat it away. It was undeniable. And of course, because a lot of the information that came through in those earlier years was about more of the mechanics and the engineering of reality, and that kind of wisdom is very matter of a fact. So I later discovered, Serapis was the architect of some serious things that happened in the Middle East. And I also had an experience where I went to Greece, actually, and the bus randomly stopped. And we got out, and there was this huge statue of King Leonidas, and it was where the 300 the 300 Sparta battle was. And that was Serapis. And I felt it in my body, and I felt this feeling it was almost unrecognizable to me as Rebecca. And I heard him, and he said, "This is what fearlessness feels like." And I was like, wow.
What an amazing synchronicity. I love the way the universe conspires to give you a message. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
you speak of like the transmissions often on the Earth's shift into the new dimensional reality. And we can obviously everybody, well, that's awake, can feel
Mhm.
that right now.
Yeah.
So what exactly like is this shift, according to the masters, and where are we sort of within that shift right now?
Well, it's happening. That's the first thing we want to say. You can't stop it. That's the other thing we want to say. I'm going to go in a little bit deeper and get them to answer this, because I've just been told I would answer this in a different way. So they would like to answer this more directly. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. Thank you.
Okay. I think they think I'm going to butcher it, maybe. Well, I wouldn't butcher it. I would just give it a more human perspective. But anyhow, whatever. Let's go deeper. I've learned not to argue. Greetings to you, Blessed One. We are with you. Humans talk about shift. We would encourage them to look at becoming, because the shift in reality for humanity is in essence about becoming more of who you are. And when you become more of who you are, you begin to see. And when you can see, you begin to choose. Humanity believes that they know what choice is. They believe they can choose what to create in their realities. And yet it's very difficult to choose when you cannot see. And it's very difficult to see when you cannot feel. We would say that, to put it simply, the fundamental shift for humanity is relaxing back into your birthright and your sovereignty to be able to feel what you want when you want to feel it. And we may be simplifying here, and we can speak about vibrational changes, and we can speak about timelines, and we can speak about radical shifts in belief and systemization. But we would like to speak about it in terms of the human experience of it. And the human experience is thus: humans have completely forgotten that they have the right to sense and feel whatever they want to, whenever they want to. And in this regard, humanity has created systemizations and beliefs and structures that insist that certain conditions in your environment must be achieved or generated so that you can have permission to feel how you would wish to feel, so that you can experience what it is that you want to experience. You have become dependent on the appearance of your reality to dictate how you want to feel. And this, in essence, is the releasing of humanity out of a time loop of devotion to your external reality, and rather the resettling of sovereignty back into your internal reality. It's so important for humanity to realize that most of what you aspire to, most of what you seek to create, is to give you a feeling. I want this so that I can feel this, rather than it's my right to feel this. And when you give yourself permission to feel what you want to feel, regardless of the conditions of your external reality, you are in essence vibrationally recoding the reality that you experience. And naturally, subsequently, you are recoding the collective experience for humanity, so that it now offers you possibilities, permutations, and experiences that are in accordance to what it is that you are feeling. So it's all about freedom. Yes.
I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that wisdom through. And it felt actually very specific as well to me, as well as the collective,
Yes.
which was wonderful because it's definitely how, it's almost like we're just about to go on a cruise around Europe. And of course, that's a very good example of what I think the masters are just talking about. It's like, oh, the cruise is going to make me feel free, when really, no, feel free anyway, regardless, and
Yes.
it all comes back to freedom, doesn't it?
Of course, it's permission to feel the way you want to feel when you want to feel it without having to generate the experiential evidence to justify you feeling that. Isn't that interesting? Because when you do that, you begin to effortlessly create multiple opportunities to amplify that feeling state. And you now begin to inform your reality. And this is the shift.
So what a wonderful shift that is, I think. It's so is that the entire shift, or is that just an aspect of the shift that's taking place?
It's bringing our view of your paradigm shift directly into how humans can experience life, because it is repositioning the human as the creator of the reality. Yes, now humans will often say, well, I know I create my reality because my thoughts create my reality. But we want to be very clear that your thoughts can only create reflection. And they can only create reflection within a reality that's already encoded with belief. But your feeling state and the vibration that you feel within your own body has the ability to encode reality and therefore add new coding to the experience so that more experiences in accordance with that feeling state can now become available within the collective field.
Absolutely. So
it's actually quite simple.
it is, but the feeling that I'm getting with some of the information that's coming through, it reminds me of a lot of the stuff that was kind of first heard by the collective through the Secret documentary. And I think that, we've evolved way beyond, those teachings now, but they still form a very core aspect in the creation of reality. In your experience, what is the difference between human consciousness and soul consciousness?
Well, this is where we want to discuss with you the very premise for the design of the Earth reality. Because the Earth reality itself, as you know, it generates a field that is experienced as duality. That's the fundamental principle of your third, fourth density experience, yes? But when you actually ask the question, why duality? What is the function of duality? It's always important to ask the function. Yes, as an engineer, one always asks the function. So if we ask, what is the function of duality? The function of duality is to generate an experience of reunion. And so the Earth reality itself is blooming with beings that are arriving in many forms and in many states of awareness to principally discover the experience of reunion, which is not so easy to discover in other dimensional realities where a unified field of awareness is the status quo. So it's that absolute joy of coming back into the oneness that the Earth reality is designed for. And so what you discover is that what you see to be a battle between light and dark, or positivity and negativity within this experience, is just a function to bring it back into one. And where does that happen for the human? It happens within. It happens within your own body. It happens within your own experience. You yourself, as an aspect of consciousness, are a unifying field for reunion. And therefore, it is your greatest capacity to be able to hold both love and fear, to be able to hold both pleasure and pain and invite all of it back to the source within you, not to reject, but to embrace for a scene of reunion. And from that unified experience, the human is reestablished back to its original blueprint, its original design as one of the greatest creator species that is known. The potential for humans to create that which has not yet been experienced anywhere in reality is so acute. But humans have not understood that they generate experience and they create the coding within their reality through their ability to sense and feel within the body. It's not achievable to the extent that it is achievable with thought alone.
Understood. So you've also mentioned that the identity is changing. What does it mean to live without attachment to personal identity? And how can we begin that process?
Well, it's a wonderful question. And it's not just personal identity, it's attachment to anything. Because humans have been taught, where does this attachment come from? Let's speak about where attachment comes from. Because once you understand how it arose, it's very easy to alleviate yourself from it. So we will express it in this way. Attachment has arisen based on a fundamental misconception that the human itself is a storage facility, that the human body is a container, that it contains the soul, yes, that it contains memory, that it contains information, and that it contains energy. And if this is so, it also contains disease, it also contains hurt, it also contains trauma. Yes, it can contain error. So this is the fundamental misunderstanding. Because of this belief about the human as a storage facility, all of the systems and structures within your reality, and subsequently the belief systems of your reality, are based upon this premise. And as such, the dogma around survival and even evolution within this premise is that the more that you can store, the more you can survive. The more that you store, the more that you can evolve. The more that you store, the more you can expand. And yet the opposite is true. It's the misconception. Because the human is not here to store. When they store, they possess. I want to possess this knowledge. I want to possess this status. I want to possess this identity. Because the more I can gather, the more valuable I will be. And yet humanity has become a population of silos. And if you are full and you are saturated with that which you have sought to possess and collect, an identity gives you the justification to collect something. If I have an identity, it can belong to me. And as such, nothing is really flowing out of you because all of the focus is on what I can put in rather than what I can pull out. And if you remember that the body itself is a portal into multidimensionality, it is the 0 point field into the infinite wisdom of that which is yet to be known. Your function as a human ultimately is to bring the unknown into the known, which makes you a wonderful creator species, and you do it through feeling. And oftentimes what you call emotion, that is creating the flavor for the unknown to become the known. But when you're so busy trying to identify and possess because you believe that your way to evolution is through acquisition, you are cheating yourself of your true capacity to create like a god. Yes.
Yeah, I totally understand. That's brilliant. It's a great way of understanding some of those Buddhist principles of detachment being the key to enlightenment. So when we don't, we're not the container, when you understand that we're not the container and that's not our function, it helps you to release. So
Yes. And so you want to be as clear as you possibly can because you realize your reality starts on the inside and it comes out of you. If you attempt to absorb your reality, it's very difficult to change anything. Now you're just storage. You're not the wisdom itself.
and who wants to be just a big silo? Sounds gross. So what
Well,
role?
the system and the structure would like you to store energy so that you can donate it. Agree?
Okay, so could you elaborate on that for me?
Of course. So when you consider that most of the systems and structures within your reality are based on this presumption that human is a storage for energy, agree? Then your value to the system becomes how you can implement yourself into that system and supply energy to it. Yes, so you give energy to things you don't necessarily want to do, but you think you need to do. Yes, and so your energy actually keeps these systems of belief running. And what happens is that you donate your energy to them or to things that don't necessarily bring you joy. And then, because of your belief about being a storage device, I've donated this. Now I need to somehow fill up again. Yes, I'm depleted. And how do you fill up again? You go and you acquire something and possess something and store it. So, what humans have not recognized is that this belief about being a storage facility applies to how you eat, it applies to how you are in relationships, it applies to how you are interacting with the reality around you, based upon this idea that you donate energy and then have to harness energy. So, you have, in essence, become a station on an electrical circuit. And yet, humans, in essence, are not electrical. Now, there are many that would say that you are electrical. And that's because the real functionality of the human energy field is not yet fully comprehended. What we would say is the effect of the human in reality can be mapped through electrical systems, but the human itself is magnetic. And therefore, that energy is always available within you. It does not come from an external source.
Understood. Yeah, absolutely. So it's tapping into the universal supply of source, as opposed to being just a PowerPoint on an AI circuit board.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
wonderful. That's brilliant. I love that. So what role then does time play in the messages that you receive? Are we moving beyond linear time? And if so, can we navigate that practically?
Well, yes, because it's more that as you become more expanded in your consciousness, you begin to view beyond linearity. And how that happens in a practical way for humans is you begin to realize that time is not so predictable anymore. It's difficult to measure now because you're having more moments in your natural state of timelessness. And timelessness is what we would call vertical time. You have your horizontal time of the past and the future, and you have your vertical time, which is the axis that cuts through. And it is the disruptor of the third dimensional timeline, which is why there are many leaders and wise ones that will say practice a sense of presence or now moment or timelessness. Because when you do that, it intersects that predictable timeline that you find yourself within, or what you'd call the time loop of repetitive experience of programming. And you actually have an opportunity to move into a different version of life. So you could begin to view that timelines are all x-axis, they're all horizontal lines, but when you move into vertical sense of presence, suddenly you can arise at a different version. And there are infinite versions. The more expanded your consciousness, the more availability for different versions of that timeline become available to you.
Understood. So um, there are multiple versions of reality, and it depends what frequency that you're on as to which version of Earth that you experience. Am I correct in understanding
Yes,
that?
yes. And if you wish to move easily between them, simply move into a state of presence. Be so deeply present in the now moment. It's like now we have access to others.
Okay, so that's
So if you want to shift your reality, just move into the present moment.
again a very simple message, which is fantastic. So really, for a lot of people that maybe feel that it's unobtainable, it really isn't, because it's just about centering yourself in the now moment, and that's the way to almost like escape the time loop.
Well, that's the positioning that will open the door to you for other alternatives. The key to opening those other doors, yes, to walking through them, is spontaneous action from a state of presence. So now I'm feeling deeply present. Now, what is the spontaneous action? And it could be the slightest thing. It could be picking up your beverage in this hand instead of this hand. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is or how infinitesimally insignificant it may seem to you. It is that spontaneous action from the state of now or presence that unlocks and positions you in a different time experience.
Okay, so my question is then, for what purpose?
Experience. Isn't that why you are here? Isn't that why anyone who is listening to this is here? Because they want to experience something else. Because evolution itself is source consciousness experiencing as much as it possibly can. Which is why we say to humans, it is wise for you to begin to place your focus not on correcting the errors from the past, not on trying to make a reckoning with what you believe is your karmic experience, but rather to experience as much as you possibly can. Because that is evolution. And that is the accelerated leap in evolution that is available to humanity at this time.
Beautiful. So you've also spoken about a dissolution of collective agreements. What are these agreements, and how do we liberate ourselves from them?
Well, we would say the dissolution of collective beliefs that have been agreed upon from the human identity, yes? And this, one of the fundamental ones we have spoken about, is that you do not have permission to feel what you want to feel when you want to feel it unless you achieve this, or unless the environment is saying to you, now you can. Yes? So that's one of the fundamental ones. The other fundamental one is what we have also discussed, which is you are not a storage facility. And isn't it interesting, because some of the biggest misconceptions that exist within your reality, the dissolution of that system of belief, it's difficult for a human to even identify those beliefs exist. Isn't that interesting? I didn't even know that was a belief, and yet it's everywhere.
Makes you realize how far off center the collective has become when there is an unawareness around those very simple principles as impacting on their human experience.
Just your ability to see it is a paradigm shift. Yes, because the fish cannot see the water when it is in it. It can only recognize the ocean when it is out of it.
I love that. So, are there any recent transmissions from the Masters that feel particularly urgent or relevant to share with the collective right now?
Well, we're not interested in urgency because we exist in a state of timelessness. And we would also encourage humans not to be so concerned about urgency, because urgency is pressure. And if we speak about time pressure, we are speaking about the conditions of your reality being more powerful than you. And we're not so interested in that. We're interested in the inherent empowerment of the human. And so therefore, we would say to you, you naturally exist in a state of timelessness. It's only that your attention is drawn to this concept of time, and that time may be running out, and that time is on the essence. But it's not where you're actually sitting. It's just what you're peering through at this time. You have all the time in the world. And you cannot really get it wrong. It's only a question of how you choose to experience it. Yes, and this is where the freedom comes in. How would I like to experience my evolution? I would like to experience it in terms of, and whatever you would wish to feel the most, I would like to experience my expansion with this feeling on this day. And so you begin to feel what that feels like within your body, and therefore your reality is now reshaping itself in accordance to how you would like to experience evolution on this particular day. You, in essence, dear one, and all who are listening, exist in a state of timelessness. It is your belief system that exists within a state of time. And as long as you adhere to those beliefs, you experience being adhered to time. We could also introduce the concept that the Earth reality itself and Gaia exists in a state of timelessness.
So if the Earth and Gaia exist in a state of timelessness as well as humanity, so what does that mean specifically?
What that means is the way in which you are experiencing time is based upon a particular timeline of certain constructs and belief. But there are many different versions of the Earth. The question is, how would I like to experience the evolution of the Earth? What do I want to feel about it? Do I want to feel terrified and in fear and helpless? Do I want to feel as if I'm upset because of the way the Earth has been treated? Or do I want to feel the incredible majesty of the next set of possibilities for the Earth experience? And based upon how you want to feel about it is how you will experience it. This is why the shift is so important. And many humans speak about fifth dimensionality, because this is where humans move from a collective experience of belief that has locked you into a time experience through the tunnel of individual awareness. I am consciousness. I have the power to create my own reality. I can feel what I want to feel. And this is where you start to feel separated from the rest of humanity, or the majority of the beliefs. You move through the tunnel so that you have an experience of what it feels like to actually be conscious. And then you move out of the tunnel into another collective, agreed upon consensus reality, because there's enough of you moving through the tunnel now, where now we realize we can create our own reality, and we're in agreement about this. And now this is the agreed upon consensus reality. And therefore, this is the consensus Earth experience that we are now currently experiencing. So this dark night of the soul, this I feel disconnected from the rest of the world. I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I know I don't really want to participate in any of this. That's like going through a wormhole from one consensus reality into another, where you discover, actually, I don't have to do it that way. I can do it this way. And then you come out into a consensus reality where that is now the consensus belief. And you know that it's already happening because science is beginning to say that it is so.
So when you say science has already started to prove that that is so, are we talking there about quantum physics? Or
yes. Yes. But that view, what is quantum physics? What is quantum? It's got quantum sciences, but we would prefer to say that it is non-localized perception of reality. Because when you start to look at non-localized perception of reality, it's no longer about electrical transference of energy or data. And this is very important. Now it's about resonance systems. And in order for resonance systems to operate well for data experience and also for communication and creation, there must be consensus, there must be agreement. And it also means that if you're based upon a quantum system of resonance, you're only going to generate experiences that can further contribute to the evolution of your consciousness. Yes, instead of being in a loop of repetitive experience.
So is this a way then that humanity can escape the birth-death cycle ultimately?
Well, you've been escaping or trying to move around the birth and death of identity, the birth and death of the human as a storage device. Because remember, if you have a storage capacity, you can store karma. Yes? I have the weight and the burden of history that I must resolve before I can be free, rather than I am experiencing as much as I possibly can.
Okay, so it goes back to the choice of the feeling.
The feeling. What do I want to feel? Do I need to earn my way to that feeling? Or can I experience it right now in my body and begin to generate more experiences based upon that?
I've got it. Okay. So what do the masters say then about relationships in the new paradigm as we're invited to relate in new ways, and specifically with regards to relationships with our cosmic family?
Well, it's no different to a relationship with a human. It's all based upon resonance rather than electrical and data transference. And this is important because humans have sought these sorts of connections and relationships because they want to acquire something. Yes, I want information. I want wisdom. I want to know more about myself. Yes. And so the fear with humans also is, what will I have to give up to be in this connection? What will humanity give away if these relationships have developed into a more materialized or concretized form? And again, we bring your attention back to, you are not a storage facility, and therefore it is about experience. What would I wish to experience? I am free to generate the experience that I wish to have of this. And in which case, you now begin to inform the collective human experience of what those relationships can be. It's the same with a relationship with a human. What do I want to feel? And now I would wish to share this feeling in an amplified way in a resonant experience. Because when you're in a relationship that's based upon vibrational resonance, what is that? That is an amplification. Resonance is amplification. You get more of it. So if you know how you want to feel, let's say with the cosmic family, I want to have this feeling of being in a relationship with cosmic family. Then you begin to have the experience of being in a relationship with cosmic family because you already have the vibration and now you want to experience more of it. So it shows up in the form of cosmic relationship so it can become an amplified experience for you. Why? Because the nature of source consciousness itself and how it plays itself out in reality, in all realities, is fractalized. And so therefore, if you begin with how you want to feel, it fractalizes itself out into a myriad of relationships. You decide. Yes?
Yeah. And what advice do the masters have for starseeds and light workers who maybe feel exhausted or disorientated during this planetary transition?
Well, that's interesting because those particular vibrations are naturally the first to engage with the electrical system and disengage from it. Now, there are many, particularly young ones, that come through that never really engage with it, which is why they're in states of non-verbal communication, or they don't want to really engage with the assistance, with the systems of information and data transference. And that's because they are the core of the electrical system on the planet. And so there are many humans who are very advanced with their vibration who have come and have engaged. There are those that haven't engaged at all, but there are those that have. And then they suddenly realize they don't want to contribute to it anymore. So the first thing that happens is the body goes through an experience where it starts to feel withdrawals from being a part of that circuit of electrical current. You're no longer getting your supply, but you're also no longer contributing to it. And so this is the recalibration experience that humans go to when they shift into a different source of energy, becoming conscious that they're now operating on a magnetic source of energy, which generates itself from within and comes out. And in the beginning, it is not consistent like the electrical circuit. It is operating in a pulse. And so there are moments where you feel vital and moments where you don't. You want to be awake and then you want to be asleep. You're hungry, now you're not. It's very difficult to be consistent when you make that shift from electrical to magnetic source energy. That's what many humans are experiencing now with the fatigue, because you'll have bursts of vitality and then the fatigue again. And it's wise for you to remind yourselves that you're not meant to be in a state of consistency at this time. You're meant to be in a state of transition from one system of energy and data flow to another. Yes.
So what's in your personal practice or way of staying anchored and attuned to the energies on the planet? What's the best way so that we can continue with this acceleration? How can we stay in that energy? I know you say we're not supposed to feel it consistently, but ultimately, are we going to be completely connected to the magnetic vibration?
Well, it's really just a question of bringing your attention to it, because when you bring your attention to it consciously, your nervous system now starts to become more regulated with it, because it's not seen to feel that anything is missing. But it's also wonderful because you don't go through states where you feel overloaded anymore. Do you recall the days, dear one, where you used to feel overloaded by what was happening when you engaged? The days of overload are starting to wane, because you're now moving into that internal source of energy within you and becoming less reliant on the external. Yes? So we wouldn't say that there's one particular way that is more beneficial than another. It is really a question of reminding yourself that evolution is occurring, the expansion is happening. Let's bring it back to your greatest capacity, which is to create. How do humans create? They create it from vibration. How do I want to feel in this moment?
And thank you so much, Masters, for all of your infinite wisdom today. It's been truly enlightening to receive this. So I thank you so much for all of your contributions today.
It is our great joy to be with you.
Welcome back, Rebecca.
Oh,
That's
thank
amazing.
you.
How do you feel after you've come out of a channeling like that?
Pretty good. I mean, it's the end of the day now, so not as vital as I would be earlier in the day. But to me, I mean, Hayden, it's just like fascinating. So I get quite stimulated because, oh, it's new view and a new way of looking at things. And it's no two conversations are ever the same. So it's always like I heard it expressed in a different way just then. So that's, it's very interesting to me. If it wasn't interesting to me, I don't think I would be doing this.
No,
I'd go
it's
and do
amazing.
something else.
Well, that's it. I mean, there's a lot of other things that are a lot more sort of straightforward and simple. And it made me laugh earlier when you were saying about, for a Perth girl, to sort of be going through that form of awakening at that age,
Yeah.
but because I've lived in Perth myself for 15 years now, and I've been coming backwards and forwards from Australia since I was 27. And really, it is. I don't mean to put the collective down in Perth, but there aren't that many people that are, sort of to the level that you are with regards to your abilities to tap in. So it must have felt, that you were a real fish out of water, when you were going through that process. Did your family
Definitely
support
in
you?
my childhood. They were very supportive actually. And I did know of another channeler or two in Perth when I was younger. So at least I had a reference for what it was. But I think my greatest challenge was my age, and my perceived lack of experience, because it was very difficult to. I really wanted someone to take me under their wing and like mentor me, and that just wasn't available. But I have to say, I do find that there is a really beautiful thread of conscious people in Perth. And I'm very blessed to have connected with many of them, including obviously some that we've both connected with and we know, and we've connected to each other through those threads. So there is definitely a beautiful, I would say it's like a vein of gold that runs through Perth, but it's just not necessarily out in the open.
It's not out
I
in the.
hope I hope that it becomes more visible in the years ahead.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I'm sure it will. But once again, Rebecca, thank you so much for such an activating conversation. I feel like I've learned so much from, the channelings today. It's been really, really uplifting for me. The conversation with the masters and, your ability to translate such vast cosmic perspectives into accessible and practical wisdom is truly a gift, in these times. So if today's episode has resonated with you, and you'd like to learn more about the work that Rebecca does, what's the best way that people can contact you, Rebecca?
Oh, just my website, super simple. My name, RebeccaDawson.com.
Nice and easy.
Lots of free content on there. YouTube. I have a membership, so we do, meetings and channelings every month if you're interested in that. Yeah, lots to explore. So feel
Yeah,
free.
that sounds amazing. And I'll pop your website address in the description below, so that
Thank you.
anybody can get in contact and, learn more about that. And of course, any of your upcoming events and your books as well. So, if you've loved Cosmic Conversations, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and share the episode with a few of your friends that are also seeking wisdom like this. Let's keep raising the collective frequency, one conversation at a time. Until next time, stay radiant, stay curious, and stay aligned with the cosmos. Have a great day. And thanks again, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Bye for now.